Welcome to the Power Dialogue, where we bring you conversations with senior leaders across the power industry, exploring their career stories, leadership philosophies, and the insights shaping the future of power. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Dialogue podcast. I'm your host, Karan, and today I'm excited to be joined by Jacques-Alexandre Fortin. Alex is the Vice President of Strategic Growth and Development at DemTroys, a building energy management systems company, where he leads market expansion and strategic partnership in the smart energy management and IoT solution space. And he's also a strategic investor at Renewable. Alex brings over 20 years of strategic leadership experience across the energy and clean tech sectors. He has built his career at the intersection of technology, strategy, and market growth, playing a key role in scaling renewable energy solutions and building high-impact partnerships across global markets. Alex and I also had the chance to work together at Evlo, so I'm really looking forward to diving into this conversation. With that, Alex, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Karan. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm glad to be here.
When I was planning to launch this podcast, I knew I had to have you on the show, not only because, you have been an inspiration for me personally, but also because of the journey that you have had throughout your career, which I think would be interesting for our listeners, which, we'll dive into in a moment here. But yeah, I'm really glad we could make this happen.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm really humbled by this opportunity. It's my first time, but I'm glad to share whatever I can share as an experience that could potentially help that people, navigate through the space and learn and help them through their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the purpose of this podcast, is to share those journeys so that the next generation of leaders can take away some of those lessons from the guest who has kind of like made that career. So yes, if we go right at the beginning of your career, when you first started in the engineering space, talk us through what originally drove you towards engineering and working in the clean energy space.
Yeah, so very good question. So, when you're young, you try a lot of stuff. You don't necessarily know what you like, what you don't like. So, what drove me to engineering? First, I love mechanics. I love taking stuff apart, building stuff, repairing stuff. I did, biking, cars and stuff. So I always had my hands into things and trying to understand how they work and how can fix them and improve them. So right off the bat, I did my in Quebec at CEGEP, but it's like the pre-university classes. I said, okay, what could help me build the greatest toolbox to understand, different problems and how things work in the world. And because essentially I wanted to solve those problems. So bottom line is, I said, most basic thing is science, and engineering is the most, I want to say, applicable problem solving toolbox that we could find. So that's essentially the reason I tried, and I said, I don't know if I'm going to succeed, if I'm going to be good at it, but let's try it out. And I dove into it. And I think I would do the same thing today, because I believe that understanding the root cause of problems and technology and using technology to solve real problems, real life problems, is not only challenging, it keeps you, I want to say, aligned and awake. You can solve all kinds of problems, and there's so many of them. So it's a fun challenge to address. And in order to address that challenge, you need to understand technology. So I think engineering is most certainly one of the good spot to start with. And I also want it to be applicable, not only like pure sciences, like research and top end, to be able to apply things. So I think it's the best tool set that you can get your hands on to be able to apply technology to problems and build solutions. So that's in a nutshell why I went into mechanical engineering. And I've always been attracted to the energy side of things as well. And I thought that it was electrical and mechanical. There's always a big, I want to say, this challenge between civil, mechanical, and electrical. So I found the middle. I said mechanical is a little bit of everything. And yeah, I've loved the path so far. So I would highly recommend it.
100%. I think that's very interesting perspective you shared. I think especially if you love building stuff and applying that engineering principles into your real world application, I think that's the best way to put it. And you have done throughout your career, like applying that same philosophy as you kind of grew. So after picked mechanical engineering, went to the school, and when you graduated, you first joined Taiko International as an engineer. Tell us how the transition from taking mechanical engineering in the school to your first experience working at Taiko as an engineer, and how did that shape your initial career direction?
It's a very good question. Before I get into the first professional experience, I would strongly recommend people that are identifying different opportunities to go to different schools to focus on practical schools, like at least programs that offer internships. Very much want to say much more. You get a lot more depth into your learning experience than just a traditional school. And unfortunately, I wasn't a traditional way of learning. So you go to class, you ingurgitate a whole bunch of material, then you regurgitate that into an exam, and you have some labs, but not so much internship. So I had the chance of being recommended by my teachers to go and do some internships into the industry. And that was really, really helpful. But I know that there's different programs out there. I would strongly recommend people opting for the ones that include automatically internship throughout the courses, because the learning experience is so much more, it's so much deeper. So when I got out of school, I said, okay, I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was based in this Eastern Township. I was based in Montreal, and I didn't really know what I would, like to do, but I knew that I needed to get a hold of myself and, dive into it. So I applied to that Tyco International opportunity where I was a project engineer in the R&D department. So it was a great experience because it was a manufacturing industry, 100-year-old manufacturing plant where they had a team of young engineers. So they were hiring young engineers to solve any kinds of problems in the manufacturing plant. And coming about Tyco, it was a family business that was bought like a few years before I got there by Tyco and International. And the will was to switch from I want to say, kind of a mom and pop shop to top end, Six Sigma, ISO 9001 certified industry. So I was lucky enough to go through such a shift in I want to say, business management and structure. So, and all of that through an manufacturing engineer R&D role. So bottom line is, I got a lot of opportunity to see a transition into a modern day manufacturing plant, but also do a lot of problem solving and touch many different areas into the engineering fields. I touched on machine, on processes, on pure R&D. We had different departments. I also touched on industrial engineering as well. So I had a chance of studying my black belt Six Sigma within the Tyco organization. And we had, the overall management shift from a traditional to I want to say, structured Toyota way kind of manufacturing environment. So very deep learning experience. And it was like 5 internships into one because basically they were giving us all the problems to solve with some resources, but not all resources, obviously. But it was a very nice experience because we were a young team, pretty much all the same age. The higher management were focused on switching I want to say, the general manufacturing processes, and every problem on the machines, the process, the R&D was in our court. So I got my hands dirty in many types of problems, managing steam systems, extrusion processes, all kinds of mechanical design in order to improve the efficiency of the industrial process. So it was really, I want to say, a good ground to tackle all kinds of problems. And some of the problems I tackled were successful. Others were failures, utter failures. But bottom line is, it was an opportunity to learn and learn what you like and also learn what you don't like. That's probably the most important thing, because at the end of the day, I mean, you get to know who you are as a person, where you feel comfortable, where you feel valued, and where you feel empowered. And and by testing the boundaries, if you don't test the boundaries and you don't get out of your comfort zone, you never know what you're good at and what you don't like doing. So that experience has taught me so much, and basically that's what triggered an internal process within me. And then that's basically after almost 3 years there, I knew that I wasn't a good employee. I needed to fly on my own, and I needed to make my own decisions because I was seeing that, sometimes important decisions are made and you don't understand why. You don't have all the inputs. You don't have all the information. And it was difficult for me not to be able to grasp those and not be involved into the big decisions. So I said to myself, okay, I'm a soldier here. I'm going to be a good soldier. So I was a great soldier. I did really, really good work that paid off for the company. But moving forward, I want to be more involved into those decisions. I want to be part of the equation. I want to have an impact and say, hey, we should do this, we should do that. And that's what drove me to say, okay, I won't be a good employee. I need to make a pivot or change something because I won't be able to last very long in that position. So that was my kind of a conclusion after 2.5 years. And I was kind of strategic because I wanted to get my engineering, so there's like a 3-year period. You need to be a junior engineer before you can.
So you're getting your license, yeah.
Yeah, I got my
Yeah.
license right off my degree and the black belt as well. I thought the black belt Six Sigma was really something that I could put into my resume that had a lot of value as well. So I finished that, and then I had planned, and I've always been like that. So planning 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead. 5 is a little bit too much, but like have a runway and a strategic approach to development. So after 3 years, once I had my license, once I had my black belt training and I did my project, I completed my project, which was really, really successful for the company. I said, okay, switch.
Yeah, I think that's really important that you touch on is, yeah, especially when you're early on in your career, you have an appetite to take risk, right? Like you just figure out what you like, what you don't like, to your point. And through that, you can figure out a lot of things and what values align with you and where you want to take your career. So seems like based on what you mentioned, you have had that opportunity, and some of emerging professionals, I think that's something also for them to take away. Most important is like taking risk early in your career. It's important to figure out what you love and enjoy doing, especially. So I guess like in the later part, you mentioned 2.5, 3 years, you finished your assignment, and then you decided to now, let's say, okay, you don't want to be just a soldier, but be part of the broader equation. And you made a pretty bold move of stepping away and spending some time internationally, which, if you're early on in your career without anything else lined up, is considered not so traditional move, I will say. Talk us through like what motivated you to kind of take that time and sort of like spend some time internationally to figure out what do you want to go after next?
Yeah, it's a good question, and you see a lot of people taking some time off between, let's say, CJEP or college and university, and unfortunately, I was not able to do that before university started. So I always wanted to do like some sort of backpack trip or travel around the world, and I wasn't able to do that. So I back to back school, working in the summer, and then graduating, moving away from in another region and with my girlfriend at the time. So, like I said, I planned things a little bit ahead of time. And I was fortunate enough to have my wife following a cursus where she needed to go away to complement her studies to do a post doctorate. So
Okay,
the specialty. Yeah. So I said, okay, let's align things that we make sure that I'm able to follow, and also find something like it was an opportunity for us to do something out of that at that time. So I said, okay, we'll lay the foundation of our life together. We'll leave together and say and experience that together. So by the time I had done my 3 years at Tyco International, I also had built a quadruplex. So invested some money into a multi-residential building in order to have a baseline that would allow us to have some revenues and also kind of have a stability for us to be able to leave. So that's what we had done. So we were able to live in that quadruplex for about a year before we left to Switzerland, and we basically rented our place, and we had I want to say supporting revenues, not so big, but just enough so that we could take some time away together. So that's how we structured things. And my wife was studying and working at the same time, so she had also a complementary revenue. And for myself, I said, okay, this is an opportunity to take some time to reflect and pivot, because I had learned the past 3 years that I didn't want to necessarily continue into the pure manufacturing world. I love project management and project engineering, and I loved R&D as well. But fundamentally, I needed to feel that my work was serving some cause, serving some challenge that the world faces. And I've always been interested in renewable energy efficiency. For instance, my capstone project for my at the end of my bachelor, I built a compressed air multi-pole generator with a quasi turbine engine. So it was like a kind of crazy project that I proposed myself, and I built a team to I put a team together and led that team to build some kind of, you know, weird machine that basically converted compressed air to low RPM clean electric energy. And we built everything together. We had huge success. We had like the best grade in the whole capstone class, and it was a great experience. And since then, I always said to myself, like, there's something to be done in that renewable energy space, and I want to be part of it. So going away from the typical or traditional manufacturing field, I said, how can I restructure and pivot my career into that space? I want to be an actor. I want to retool and reset and do something that I'm going to feel proud of at the end of my career. That was the main intent. And obviously we did have a lot of fun. We traveled, we met all kinds of people. We lived our best life. I mean, you're 26, 27, 28. No, I was 28 when we left. She was 29. We had no kids, no cell phone, no car. We lived right next to the lake, the Geneva Lake. We had like a train and all the travel was really automated and really efficient, like the bus network, the metro network as well, the subway and everything. So, I mean, it was the best life. Every weekend we would leave to a different country with EasyJet. Would cost us like $50 to get to London, to get to France, Spain, all kinds of, so it was an amazing experience. But most importantly, I took a lot of time to reflect and try to draft a plan on how to come back and reorganize my career. I did. It was funny enough. I was kind of doing those motivational sessions with Tony Robbins. At the time, I listened to the podcast, not a podcast, but the recordings, and try to implement those the different tools that he gives to people to motivate to make, get into the action. And I also registered myself to a class, like a certificate in the sustainable development and renewable energy space, because I figured that I had to have something to justify me going back and having a energy renewable efficiency aspect to my resume. I needed to have some credibility. So I couldn't just say I switched from R&D project engineer. I want to be a solar engineer whenever, or so I needed something to articulate that credibility. So that's what I've done. I was supposed to get myself into a master's at BFL, who's which is a very renowned engineering school in the Geneva, or between Geneva and Lausanne region. But unfortunately, it was too long. It extended beyond a year, so we couldn't fit that in, and it was really really expensive as well. So I said, okay, I'm going to do something in between. So I did that certificate, 15 credits certificate that was funny enough, really, really interesting, because it got me into the sustainable development aspect of things. And, understanding that energy efficiency and just renewable energy as a whole, like replacing traditional to renewable energy is not necessarily the whole picture of the right decision to make. Sometimes, you have to take many aspects into account before saying it's the right decision or right move to make. So it gave me an additional and different perspective, more of a sustainable perspective. And the Swiss are, they're pioneers in that way of seeing things. So we thought it made a lot of sense. So yeah, so that's essentially what drove me to go and to Switzerland, and what I took away from that time off.
Yeah, that's a great story. It's like getting some exposure internationally and figuring out what you want to do next. As you said, getting some credential on your resume, just try to see like when you want to pivot into that renewable energy or sustainable development space, you have something, or you can make a very strategic way of pivoting from R&D manufacturing to then renewable space, right? So now that, you took over the sustainability development course, looking to switch into renewables, how did your first opportunity in renewable space came about? Was it still in Switzerland, or did you move to Canada and then you started working in the renewable space?
Yeah. So it's a very good point. So it's good to have a resume, but you need more than that in order to make a shift. So I did a lot of discussion with local people in Switzerland to know a little bit better how to tackle this. And I did also some networking, like external networking, to build more contacts into that space. So I sent a bunch of LinkedIn messages, a bunch of emails of people in my current network, and people that were referred to me that were somewhat into or near of that market or that field, renewable energy. And like we say, I threw some lines in all kinds of directions, just introducing myself, saying, here's my profile, here's what I'm looking for. And if I take a couple steps back, too, I really did take some time to make a plan and draft what or where I was portraying myself in a few years forward. So I really took time to visualize and put words into what I was looking for. So that helped structure my reaching out phase, where I went all over the place. I've talked to many different industries, many different people and different roles to see how I could connect and what could I do? What kind of opportunities is there for me? And that's always been something that I've put emphasis on, is being receptive. Because it's one thing to draft a plan and say, this is what I want to do. And it's another thing to find the exact same opportunity. So sometimes you need to be receptive and trying to connect dots together and see the opportunities where sometimes they don't exist. They're not, someone won't draft a plan specifically according to what you've planned for yourself. So you need to sometimes put things together. So that's essentially what I did. And one of those reach out led me to someone in the, I want to say, not business development, but networking and supporting entrepreneurs in the region, in the Eastern Township region, an hour and a half from Montreal. And she responded. She said, "Hey, very interesting profile. I'll look into how I could help you." And she got back, I want to say about 3 weeks before we were heading back to Quebec, because our time for our permit was coming to an end in Switzerland. And she said, "Hey, there's that guy I know. We just barely started a solar proof of concept. So he's got some financing. He's got some real solid potential, and he's a smart guy. You should meet him." I said, "Hey, what's up?" I looked into that and I said, "Okay, why not? It looks interesting." And long story short, the morning after our arrival back to Quebec, I had a meeting with that guy, and we had like a crush. It was almost instantaneous. He said, "Okay, I've got some money. I've got a crazy idea, but there's plenty of momentum. There's an opportunity to develop this, and I need some people to help me do it." So I said, "Oh my God, this is a dream come true. And I had exchanged with him as well what I was looking for. So I said, I'm looking for an opportunity to build a business, not as an equity partner, not as just a pure employee. I didn't have a lot of money. I couldn't buy a company. I couldn't do many things, but I said, that's my goal. That's what I want to reach. And does that fit with, what you have in mind? So he said, you know what? Right now it's a clean slate. I mean, I'm alone. I'm looking for a team. I'm looking for partners.
Yes, yeah.
It's a big challenge, big opportunity. Why not? Let's test it out. So I started as an employee, of course, but after 6 months, we said, okay, this can work. He basically said, we share the business. We split half and half, 50-50. And, we go ahead and try to make this work. So that's how I got into the solar world as a business. I want to say as a co-founder and business owner. So that was a huge, cliff dive in this case.
You touched on something very important. I think having that ecosystem of network in place. We talk everywhere, irrespective of the industry, especially focused on when it comes to renewable or energy in general. Everyone knows everyone in the industry. So I think having a network of people who can be your champion and vouch for you, I think that's such an important thing, taking the networking aspect, which seems for you kind of came that connection. And so that's where the company that you joined later as an engineer and then took a part ownership was Rakam. So in your initial years of starting as an engineer to working few years and then taking on a partnership role, what was some of your learning stepping away from the traditional settings, right? Where you work as an employee and then you work your way up to management role and then take on the leadership role versus you went from being an engineer to an entrepreneur in a partnership role.
Yeah. I mean, such a transition, such a different perspective when you go through that switch or that transition. So obviously when you start something, you need to be credible. You need to be, you need to know what you're talking about. So getting your hands dirty, doing, the development, the installation, the troubleshooting, the project engineer, everything is necessary to build the credibility and give you also we say in French, a prestance. So being credible at when you talk about things. So we were in a situation where nobody had done what we had done, at least not in North America, or maybe very few people in North America. There's maybe some, at the time, there was one company in Hawaii that tried something that didn't work out so well. But so we needed to build our credibility. So starting at the technical level, understanding the problems, understanding the solution, potential solution. How do we go about putting a solution together, not just a machine, not just an equipment, but a full solution that provides value to a client has been, I want to say, a huge learning experience. And as you transition from an employee or I want to say a project engineer, where you have your we say in French, tête dans le guidon, or the face in front of the tree. Once you step away and step into a management role, you start to see the forest, and your focus shifts totally. When you're in the engineering, you have, very focused vision on the technical problem you're trying to solve and how to go about doing that without affecting other zones of the company. When you step back, you see all the different departments and or types of problems, and your focus shifts from the technical issue to top and bottom line management. How do you generate more revenue? How do you reduce costs? I mean, HR, human resources, HR, everything becomes a people problem and much more complex into finding solutions than a mathematical equation where, you just apply, the right parameters, play with the right parameters and find a solution. So there's not like a yes or no answer. It's always in betweens. And then you add to that the general administrative hurdles of a startup, subsidies, grants, reporting, accounting, insurance, taking care of all those small problems, but once all added together, changes the whole perspective. So you step away from being a focused, deep expert into your field to being a multitask, multi-problem, human resource, problem solving kind of person. So it's a huge transition. And when you start and you say, I want to be an engineer because I'm good technically, the shift from that person or that profile to a management profile is not a simple one to make. At least it's not simple for everyone. I think it it requires a different set of aptitudes or tools, and you need to have that. And I think one of the main aspect why I I think I made a good transition from an engineer to entrepreneur or manager or businessman, whatever how you want to call it, is that engineering was, although it was interesting to me, it wasn't. I was never really good engineer. Like, I've met good engineers in my life and my career. You are one of them. And most of my teams, I surrounded myself with much better engineers than I ever was. So I kind of use the engineering as a tool set to be a more, I want to say, a better manager slash entrepreneur. I think that why it was a natural fit for me to shift and evolve into, I want to say, leadership, a role and position. And also, like, and the other aspect is, I fundamentally like building teams. There's something with when I look back with the experience, there's something really, something I cherish a lot and I take a lot of pride is solving complex problems with the help of a team, and seeing how, as a multitude of brains and personalities and aptitudes can solve a complex problem much better and in a much more efficient, not necessarily efficient, but a better end result than what you would have done alone or in a smaller team. So I really learned that that is probably the largest bit of pride I take into a management role.
I think that's a very interesting perspective. When you're in an engineering role, you are focused on this one technical function. We're trying to solve problem, build things. But yeah, to your point, when you start moving to management role, you start looking at cross-functional, team, HR, as you mentioned, corporate governance side of things, investors. If you are, up and coming startup, you're looking to bring more funding. So I think those are all come into play. And similar to your point, for me, kind of the same approach. I did my electrical engineering. I figured early on that I'm not so great engineer, versus like I can still use my engineering and like that knowledge, apply that in providing this holistic solution to it. It's the same thing, taking engineering knowledge and principle that you can take with you throughout your journey wherever you go, that will still hold true to you. So I think that's very important. Now that during the time that you were building business, of course, as an entrepreneur, there are great times where the business is going high, but there's also like low period, so where there are like some of those like tough moments. What were some of the challenging moments you had encounters during your journey?
Oh man, did we had some, well, I guess some both of tailwinds and headwinds, and a huge amount of opportunities to fail and fail forward. But at the start, obviously, when you start, the startup environment so it built a lot of hype. You get this amazing idea. You have the momentum and the energy of youth, and saying, I, I can be crazy. I'm 24, 28, 30 years old, whatever. I could do whatever. I'm going to go through it. And then once you get in, so you get that tailwind that pushes you. You get money, you get, as a connaissance. So, you get, you have all those rewards because I want to say society encourages startups and entrepreneurship. So you get that momentum, you get that feel good moment. You get financing, you get a lot of money. There's so much money right now. Feeding those startups without having proven anything. It's crazy. So you get that momentum, that start shift, and then you start building, you start delivering, you start realizing that your business plan is not the real thing. Business plan, business plans are made to fail. It's, I mean, no business plan in the world, I think, ever got completed completely. So headwinds, I mean, we were in North America building solar panels where, solar irradiation is not necessarily the best. It's good with diffuse and total diffuse solar irradiation, but in our case, we were using concentrated solar. So in order to have efficiency in concentrating solar, you needed, straight sunlight without any humidity in the air. Where, in Canada or in Quebec, at least, I mean, there's like 7 days of clear sun during the year. So first, the condition. Second, the geopolitical environment. I mean, we still see it today. The context is evolving quite rapidly. There's, this COVID came upon, then the war, and then Trump, and everything else. I mean, there's a lot of environmental context that affects your business plan, affects your credibility, it affects the willingness of your client to go ahead with these types of projects. And bottom line is, we faced a lot of headwinds because the shale gas industry, for instance, came strongly in those years, and we're go back to 2010, 11, for all the way up to 2018 or ish. The price of natural gas plummeted in North America because of the shale gas industry, and we were battling against them. So we were trying to sell rooftop, massive solar panels that was tracking the sun to replace natural gas to preheat the boiler. So we weren't even replacing, we were just complementing existing consumption. So we came across the hard fact that even though, ESG, credit carbons, ESG reporting, credit carbons, and overall renewable energy hype was not the real decision maker. Bottom line is dollars. People make decisions, and especially in big corporations, based on dollar signs. And unfortunately, the fact that the energy we were replacing was very, very cheap, we could get that we could. The paybacks weren't that great. So that forced us to say, okay, how do we go about, justifying our business model and building those infrastructure? Because there were infrastructure, there were massive projects, massive mirrors, massive pumping modules, hot oil circulating on rooftops, and exchanging heat through heat exchangers that were connected directly to industrial process. There were massive problems to solve. Therefore, we needed to create a lot of value for our stakeholders to go ahead and say, this makes sense for us, and I'm going to pay for it. So massive challenge in making a business case, because it was hard to sell and too expensive because we were building in North America. So we had to diversify. And be creative. So we toyed on the technical side. We tried to optimize the design so it's made cheaper. We toyed with different applications. So we did, instead of just heating, we did sludge drying. We did thermally activated cooling system with ejectocompressive technology. So basically cooling with heat. We did chemical energy storage as well at the time with sugars and phase change materials. What else? We did thermoelectric system with ORCs, so organic Rankine cycle turbines. What else we did with that? We did some research to combine PV and thermal, because we were initially just doing thermal energy, but we said, hey, how could we implement some extra PV on our focal point and say, we're going to do a part PV electric and part thermal, so we add value to the client. Yeah, so we got a lot creative, and then so that was on the technical side, and then we also did the equivalent on the market side. So it's not making sense very much in Canada, obviously, but where else in the world does it make sense? So we went in Mexico, we went in Brazil, We went in European countries like Greece, Spain, France, where I want to say the jurisdiction were helping us a little bit because in some cases they needed to implement some renewable technologies in order to get, for instance, permits to build and to operate the manufacturing plants. So we did all kinds of creative things in order to navigate our way into that context, but definitely be ready for headwinds. And even though you do like an we say in French a pastel, so an analysis of the environment and the conditions, the legal, the law, and everything. You never really know what's going to come up to you. So you need to be, you need to have some contingencies, and you need to, in the face of adversity, say, okay, we'll go through this. We'll find a way. And that's another part of having a strong team, saying with a strong team, we can go through almost anything. And it's a very powerful feeling to have to say, no matter what happens, we're going to get through it. So yeah, so a lot of issues, a lot of challenges. At the end of the day, we got through most of them. We were lucky enough to find our way and found partners as well, because obviously you need some money. We could have closed the company at least 10 times during that. I think
Wow.
once every year we had crisis, a major crisis that would basically shut down the company. But we got beyond them one after the other. And some of them were financial, some of them were technical,
Yeah.
some of them were project related, some of them were totally indirect. It's crazy how resilient you become after going through hard challenges and hard hard problems to solve, and you do them as a team. Yeah, it's really, really empowering.
Yeah, when you're an entrepreneur building your own company, there are some things in your control, but there are a lot of other external factors like the market that you mentioned, the geopolitical situation. So running your own business kind of, I think that comes with an unknown challenges, I would say. And it seems like throughout this time, you did kind of emphasize a lot more during our conversation on having strong teams, having the right set of people on your team to go weather some of the storms. So I want to talk about your journey through Rakam, and like towards the end of your time, then you switched over to corporate world, moved up from an entrepreneur to working and building team at a company called Evlo. You were still in the renewable space, working for on the solar solutions to now battery energy storage. Talk us, how did that transition happen for you? What was that to go from running your own business to working at Evlo, a big Hydro-Quebec subsidiary? Just, yeah, and also tying to that, like, what was your experience like? Because you, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were responsible building the sales team like from ground up when you were brought on there.
Yeah, so it's very so the second pivot, I call it. So the first pivot was going from a manufacturing project R&D engineer to an entrepreneur in the renewable space, and then the second pivot was getting out of that world, because at the end of the day, had spent about 10 years, a little bit more than that, in facing challenges, like I mentioned, and major challenges. And I come to a point where I said, okay, it's one thing to go through challenges and step it up to push, continue to push, but it's also you need to realize and take accountability on the general orientation. So I realized that I didn't have faith in our probability of success anymore. And I said, okay, we've pushed enough. So I need to make a decision. So I voluntarily decided to step away and tackle another challenge. So there was a small interlude between Rakam as an entrepreneur and Evlo as a middle manager. And that stepping stone or interlude was with the University of Sherbrooke as a renewable energy expert in business development, trying to build relationships between companies and the academic world to trying to do some research partnerships. And so I did the about 2 years that, and that's when I said, okay, this is not enough for me. So I'm gonna enroll into an MBA. So that's when I started to do my MBA part time at night with my 3 kids, and saying, okay, I've got a easy job, or fun but easy, kind of not too stressful. So I'm gonna keep building my my resume. So I did that MBA. And I think in some situation in the world, or in life, I want to say, there's things that happen. And I believe Evlo was kind of that kind of serendipity type of thing, moment, where I remember the exact moment. It was 7 p.m. or 6:55 p.m. I was sitting down in the desk before starting a class. I was, on my computer on LinkedIn, and I saw a page, or like a description of this, business development, sales, and strategic partnerships, Evlo, subsidiary of Hydro-Quebec Energy Storage. I was like, and I read like diagonal the description. I said, my God, this is me. I'm not looking,
Yeah.
I'm not searching for anything. It just popped onto my feed. And I said, my God, I cannot. I mean, I'm comfortable. I like what I'm doing right now. I have a good life. I'm breathing finally. I'm doing my MBA. But this description is exactly who I am. So I cannot not try. So between 6:55 and 7, maybe 7:05, I applied on LinkedIn. Literally, not even doing my
Right.
resume, an update on my resume. I just sent my resume, said, "Hey, I'm interested." And long story short, Martin Roux, the VP, who you know personally, he got back to me like a few days later saying, "Hey, I really like what you've done with Rakam and the solar business. I know what you've done." And for some reason, he knew what projects I had done in my life and stuff. And he knew about me. I didn't know about him. He knew about me. And from the exposure and
Hmm.
the media, because we were, the only solar company in Quebec doing that kind of
Quebec,
crazy stuff. So anyways, he said, I really like to speak with you and say, evaluate if that opportunity could make sense. So long story short, I said to my wife, I remember at the time, I said, this is an amazing opportunity. I mean, the conditions are crazy. It's an opportunity to be a startup within I want to say, almost limitless resources.
Yeah.
So a totally different perspective than my previous experience, where we had all kinds of
Right.
ideas and things, but no resources. We didn't have any money. So I said to myself, energy storage really linked to my past and also what interests me. A huge opportunity in a early stage startup within a large resourceful organization. My God, this is a dream come true. So I remember I was in the summer during my vacation. I got a call, I had 2 or 3 calls with Martin, and then I got a call back during my vacation, 7 a.m. in the morning, with the president at the time of Evlo, Guillaume Maillet. We got a 15-minute call saying just a general introduction to meet. And 15 minutes after that call with Martin and Guillaume, basically I had the proposal in my hand, and I remember saying to my wife, I said, I'm not interested unless it's a significant step up in conditions, because, I'm not there in my life, but it was really, really attractive opportunity. So I said, okay, I cannot let this go away.
Yeah.
So I'm going to step into it. So that's how I got to the next opportunity as a middle manager. And so I started at the bottom as a project engineer. I moved all the way to the top as a VP and business owner, and then, make part of every decision. And then I was switching back to, and something somewhere in the middle.
Mhm.
Never occurred to me to have that position. So I said, hey, it's, getting out of your comfort
Yeah.
zone. Well, I'll try that
Right.
and see how it goes. So very interesting opportunity to learn all kinds of things. And I want to say after living through like the different layers, top, bottom, middle, I think the middle one is the worst. I'm
Yeah, you're
not,
kind of in
and
between.
this is my, yeah, it's my experience, but I think the middle is the worst, because you're constantly switching, have to manage, stakeholders, top and bottom. You have a team. You have to motivate them. You have to surround them with guidance and support. when you never know really what's going on upstairs and on top of you, and you get squished on the same, you're on the
Yeah.
receiving end of decisions, egos, bursts of, I want to say it's been 3 years, a little bit more than 3 years. It's been a very interesting experience. A lot of great people, a lot of, had the chance of building a team, and it was amazing. But I think being a middle manager is definitely the toughest of roles I've had to hold in my experience. And managing the top and bottom stakeholder was I think the hardest thing to do, because it's difficult to follow the top decision making process, and also because we had different layers. I had a layer above me, and then there was the
Mhm.
Hydro Quebec layer,
Yeah.
which is even more complicated than you know any organization you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, sometimes getting out of your comfort zone, and if the opportunity pops up in front of you, just taking that chance, I think that's a very good way of looking at it. You take a chance, the worst would happen is you would have just an experience to go through things, but you're right into your last part, tying it to when you initially mentioned that being in the middle management, you don't have that visibility on the top, what's happening at the top, which kind of what you alluded to in the beginning of our conversation. So that's a very interesting perspective. So switching to now where you are at in your career at DemTroys, and also a strategic investor at Revenue. At DemTroys as a VP of strategic growth and development, how is your approach in terms of building teams and like scaling business just in general?
Yeah, and the VP role is also an equity, so I'm a partner as well. So I'm not just a VP. I jumped on board. I wanted to go back into like a leadership role. So I guess if I sum up the perspective on the general leadership and building organization, and why I chose to go back and jump into the DemTroys bandwagon, is staying true to yourself and your values. The core values is what brought me to DemTroys, because I had a lot of opportunities I could have done. I had different options. I was exploring things when I exited Evlo, but I needed something, and I wanted to find something that aligned directly to my human values, core values, like respect, transparency, doing the right thing, and building, teams, and sharing the wealth, sharing the load, sharing the pleasure, sharing the challenges with a team. And that's what I found at DemTroys. And I was very lucky, because it was, in my neighborhood, right next door, technology that I understand, and a strong market, huge benefits, potential for the society. There's a huge opportunity to grow that business and make something very, very significant. And it's also a business where you don't start at the beginning, because building a company up to a maturity point, raising or climbing those stairs to attain a certain level of maturity in the business process and your credibility on the market and the technology you're providing, it takes a toll, I think. And it's worth something. So had the chance of stepping in as a equity partner with something that was established, but still with yet a lot of potential to grow, like amazing potential to grow, and something I could easily understand and also grow in terms of business. I had the opportunities in the quantic field, and high-end stuff that are really interesting, but I wanted something that is applying to a problem that we face today, meaning energy losses, grid stability, affordable housing. So that's all aspect of problems that every society faces,
Mhm.
with a strong team and a mature business. So that's, I think, bottom line, why I chose this adventure and the team. The team is great. It was right next door. It was an opportunity with my partner. He was looking for someone like me as well, with my tool set. So it was like kind of a good fit. I mentioned, going back to what I mentioned, you need to have a plan and know what you bring to the table and where you want to get to in terms of objective, long-term vision, but you also need to be aware of your surroundings, of the
Yeah.
opportunities. So
100%. Yeah.
once again, I got introduced, I was referenced by my indirect network, and we got together, Claudel and I and my partner. And what we did for the first, I want to say 5 to 6 first meeting, we spoke about core values and vision, mission, vision, values. That's all we did. I mean, we didn't go into the technical side. We did, I knew
Yeah.
a little bit about, DemTroys before, so
Mhm.
I didn't need to go deeper into that. But we spoke about core, where we want to go, why we're doing, the famous Simon Sinek, the why behind the what type of discussion. That has been the main basis of our I want to say the fit that we found together, saying, here's why, here's what we do, how we do it, but most importantly, the why and where we want to bring that. And that basically trickled my interest and saying, okay, I want to get into this because we share the same fundamental core values, and there's huge potential. So I can bring something to the table. I think I can bring something to the table. Let's do it together. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's in
Yeah.
a nutshell where I'm at today, and how the my path has led me to this moment.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Thank you, Alex. Now I want to switch gears a little bit. We'll move into a rapid fire round. So what I'll just do, I'll give you a question. We'll give you like two options. Just go with your instinct, whatever you feel kind of like comes first to your mind. So here we go. Number one, risk taking or playing it safe?
Risk taking.
Instinct or data?
Oh, that's a tough one. So I that's the nice thing. I'm instinct. My partner is
Yeah.
data. So
Okay.
complementarity, or finding your complement is that's another very strong thing I found with Evlo. So the coloring, just before you get to the next one, but the color of the personas, red, yellow, green, and blue. So I found in my analysis that I'm like a yellow green with a little bit of blue, a little bit of red, and very few blue. So I found that when I worked at Evel with a pure blue that complemented my aptitudes and my personality, and I took so much pleasure into what we could do together as a team. It was amazing. So that's what I looked for in my next project, and that's exactly what I found in DemTroys. So the
That's fantastic.
complementarity, it's
Yeah,
crazy
that's
how
really
you can
awesome.
go. Yeah. So that's another takeaway from the discussion. Find
Yeah,
someone
no,
that's
definitely.
not thinking like you.
Yeah, like having that like complementary set of skills. Yeah, on a team. Yeah. All right. So hire for skills or attitude?
For sure. Yeah, the know, we say in French, savoir être. So know how to be before savoir faire, before knowing things, how to do things. So
Right.
that's the most
Yeah.
important thing.
Okay. 100%. Startup or scale up?
Scale up.
Big vision or execution?
So big, what?
Big vision or
Big,
execution?
big vision for me, but execution for my partner.
Awesome. Books or real world experience?
Real world experience.
Fast decisions or thoughtful decisions?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I'm kind of on the edge, because I typically take my decision fast because I'm an intuitive guy, but I'm also, I think, making decision into the action, and not waiting too long before getting into the action is also very beneficial. So yeah, I tend to be on fast decisions.
Okay. Awesome. And lastly, one word to describe your leadership style.
Charismatic.
That was great, Alex. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, for anyone listening to the show, maybe who is a young professional, emerging leader, who is unsure of their path, what they want to take, or are thinking to make a leap into a leadership role, what would your takeaway be for them based on your journey that they should take away?
Well, getting you out of your comfort zone. Like, don't fear to try things. Try things. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are the things that are going to build you as a person, as an engineer, as an entrepreneur. Those are the most important. And most importantly, fail early. Like you don't wait too long, because at one point in your life, in your career, you won't necessarily be able to allow yourself to go back to the crazy years of your starting
Right, right.
career,
Yeah.
So go ahead. And I want to say the second point is network, speak, ask question, show interest in other people, and try to learn from them, because I mean, we're not the first ones to go about, asking ourselves these types of questions. I mean, people have done it, many, 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 many generations ago. So I think it's nothing new. So don't keep that to yourself. Exchange, network, relate, ask question, interest, and put some interest into other people's path. You'll discover things that can help and shape your decision in the future, and guide you and reassure you into your decisions as well.
Yeah, that's a really great takeaway. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate you sharing your journey. This was a great conversation. And once again, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Karan.
And thank you to everyone listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the podcast and share it with others in the industry. Until next time, thanks for listening to the Power Dialogue, Conversations with Leaders Behind the Grid.